everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my top 10 albums of the year video. I hope you're all doing well and having a great festive season so far. I definitely am. I am super excited about this video today. My top 10 albums video is always my favourite video to film, and this is the 4th year in a row that I've done it, so well done to you if you've seen all 4 years. I'm also very intrigued to know what your guys' favourite albums are of this year, so please leave them in the comments. I feel like some of us will have some of the same albums. I've been chatting to a lot of you guys on Instagram and I think some of us are going to have the same #1 album. And as always, there's a completely random mix of albums in here, so hopefully you find something that you haven't heard of before. But before we get started, I do just want to do a bit of an honourable mention. So I'm going to mention a few albums that I've absolutely loved but didn't make it to my top 10. So honourable mentions are Flight B741 by King Gizzard, Evil Hate-Filled Female by Delilah Bon, Songs of a Lost World by The Cure, Dark Superstition by Gatecreeper, Pipe Defy by Pipe Eye, Exhibition of Prowess by Kubla Khan, and One Assassination Under God Chapter 1 by Marilyn Manson. So now that's out of the way, let's get going. And in 10th place for me is a self-titled album by Neck Deep.
And to be honest, it's not really much to do with fucking flowers when you stay up for hours, dude.
This one came out right at the very start of the year. I'm pretty sure it was like the first week of January, which is an interesting time to put out an album because I almost forgot about this one. But then when I was re-listening and I re-listened to this one again, I thought, yeah, this definitely makes my top 10. There are so many things I love about this album, but I really think it needs to be applauded for its length. It is 33 minutes long, which to me, it just couldn't be more perfect. Like for this type of music, I think short, punchy songs work so much better. And that is exactly what Neck Deep have delivered on this thing. Every song is so well placed, so meaningful. The production feels really simple and kind of feels like a return to some of their early albums and that like pop punk rawness. The opening track, Dumbstruck, Dumb Fuck, really sets the tone for the whole album. And Neck Deep's sound and ability to write the most like catchy melodies and catchy choruses is genuinely top tier. I also really am a big fan of this album lyrically. I love any kind of like self-deprecating, tongue-in-cheek and like politically charged lyrics, and this album is full of them. So yeah, just love it. In 9th place is another album that I've been listening to non-stop. It is Cartoon Darkness by Amyl and the Sniffers.
Me and the girls, we don't want protection. Me and the girls don't want to be boxed. Me and the girls are gonna go party. You and the boys, you shut the fuck up.
This was the last addition to my album of the year list this year. I was deliberating between this album and another one for quite a while, but in the end, I went with this one because the energy is just too infectious. And I, like a lot of the world right now, I'm obsessed with Miss Amy Taylor. I love her style of songwriting, like especially on this album. I just really love the way that she's kind of addressing the objectification of women like so head on. It kind of makes you feel like a little bit uncomfortable. From the very first song, you kind of just know what you're gonna get. There's so much to this album as well. Like it addresses like AI, climate change, war, misogyny, politics, the cost of living crisis. Like it's very layered and it has very serious subject matter a lot of the time, but it's like paired with these really fun, danceable songs. Again, I find the songs quite relatable because although there's a lot of like I'm hot, you're not stuff, there's also like a real vulnerability and fragility weaves into all of the songs as well, and I just think that's beautiful. Also, I have to say that Declan's guitar playing has really stepped up a notch on this album. There are some incredible guitar solos on songs like Chewing Gum and Pigs. Bryce's drumming as well is a big highlight for me. It's so funky, especially on the last song, Me and the Girls, and I think that's what makes this band so great. Like they obviously work together, the four of them are such a tight unit and they all bring something very special. So staying on the kind of punk vibes, my 8th place album is Humble as the Sun by Vylan.
Had to boot the door in when they wouldn't open sesame. I'm my brother's keeper, so you know I got him next to me, and if you shot the sheriff, then you know I shot the deputy.
This album is ridiculously good. I loved their last album, but for me this one is so much better. It feels like a definite improvement, and it also feels like they've matured a lot, but they haven't lost the like message at the heart of their music. Humble as the Sun is like laser focused, and it provides a really cathartic experience when you listen to it, especially if you live in the UK, because a lot of the things that they talk about on the album are kind of like UK based things. They talk a lot about like embracing your identity, standing up for yourself, being who you are, and putting a positive spin on things. But I would say at the heart of the album is like a lot of anger and venom and a lot of negativity, but you don't leave the album feeling hopeless. You definitely feel hopeful. Lyrics aside though, I'm also a big fan of how they're like fusing the rock and rap sound. The production is really interesting because it's not just like rap music with some guitars. It's really purposeful, it's creative, it's experimental at times, but there isn't a single moment that feels out of place. I saw Vylan live for the first time earlier this year actually, so I got to see a lot of the songs from this album and the crowd were going absolutely wild. Like everyone was screaming every word. The vibes were just immaculate and I honestly think they're going to go from strength to strength. So in 7th place, I am going with the very humorously titled Ridiculous and Full of Blood by Julie Christmas. I was introduced to Julie, like a lot of people I think, through her collaboration with the band Cult of Luna and their joint album Mariner, which is an unbelievably good album, but I have just been obsessed with Julie ever since. So I was so excited for this album to come out. And this album blew me away on my first listen. It was absolutely love at first listen. I have never heard anything like this in my life. It is bold, it's experimental, it's unique, it's super catchy, it is dynamic, but the one thing, and my favourite thing about the album, and I think what really steals the show, is Julie's vocal style. What she can do with her voice is unnatural. It sounds like there are 3 different people singing at some points. Her voice is so like emotive and melodic and beautiful, but then she lets out these like banshee style squeals and the most tortured screams you've ever heard in your life, and it is truly magical. She often uses juxtaposition as well, and she'll pair her like softer vocals with these like really aggressive, muddy, sludgy guitar riffs, and the instrumentation is honestly a dream as well. The riffs are really great on this album. I particularly love the Thin Skin riff and also the Blast riff as well. They're so addictive. And amongst all of this chaos, Julie manages to deliver some really like catchy moments as well. It's so good. I cannot recommend it enough. So next up is an album that I feel will be on a lot of people's lists this year. I saw quite a few creators saying that they were waiting for this one to come out before they finalised their lists, and that was what I was doing. And I have seen so many good things about this album, so I feel like it's gonna have made it onto a lot of people's lists. And I'm of course talking about The Last Will and Testament by Opeth. At the time of filming this, the album came out around 3 weeks ago, and I usually like to give myself a little bit more time with albums before like I'd include them on a list, but there just wasn't the time with this one. And to be fair, I did fall in love with it like pretty quickly, and I did have high expectations for it because I love Opeth and I pretty much love everything they've done. My expectations were absolutely met. This is everything I could have wanted from this new Opeth album. There's plenty of Michael's classic death metal vocals, which I think is the thing that's like caused the most attention to this album, but that isn't even really that like highlights of the album for me. There are some absolutely stunning guitar solos and some really heavily 70s progressive rock inspired moments. You guys know how much I love jazz and prog and everything. I just feel like this album was like made for me. The final track, A Story Never Told, probably has my favourite guitar solo of the year. It is absolutely beautiful and an amazing way to end the album. I also really love like the atmosphere that's created with this album. It's telling a story, but so much tension is building at all times and you really don't know what's coming next. There's some brutal riffs juxtaposed with flute solos and proggy epic drum fills. I am just so impressed. In 5th place is another album that I knew straight away would be on my list. You Won't Go Before You're Supposed To by Knock Loose. Where do I even start with this one? I feel like everybody's talking about this one this year. They have really made their mark with this album, and I'm seeing people that have no interest in hardcore music, no interest in heavy music, are still talking about it and loving it. And I think that that's a pretty good sign that they've done something right. Brian's voice is a force to be reckoned with. It's so powerful and so aggressive, and he's backed up by the most dirty guitar tones you've ever heard in your life. It's a complete headache of an album, but in the best way. They haven't even sacrificed like an ounce of their heaviness, but yet they've still managed to grow so much in popularity. And honestly, I just think it's because this album is full of just undeniably great songs. They're so well written and so emotive. I was really touched by some of the lyrics, especially on songs like Don't Reach For Me and Blinding Faith. The heavy, gritty bass lines are really standing out for me as well. I know everybody's going on about Isaac's guitar playing, and he is amazing, but I really think Kevin has been given a time to shine on this thing as well. Moving on, 4th place, my next pick is going to be Chorus by Mildlife.
Getting up and down as it breaks your body down.
I'd say that this was probably the album that I was most anticipating throughout the whole year. It's a pretty different vibe to all of the albums that I've spoken about so far, and if you're a big watcher of my videos, you'll know that I talk about Mildlife a lot because they're one of my favourite bands. I pretty much love everything they've ever done. Like, I think when it comes to psychedelic jazz, I personally don't know anyone that's doing it better than Mildlife. Each song flows beautifully into the next one. It's all very coherent. There's a very realised sound. One of my favourite things about Mildlife as well is they have a really great bass player, and bass is kind of at the centerpiece of all their songs. It's always really prominent and really funky, and their bass lines are really unique. I think pretty much every song as well on this thing is over 5 minutes, so it feels really fleshed out, and you're kind of given time to like sit with the melodies, and I find it a really rewarding listening experience. In 3rd place is an album that I never could have predicted would be in my top 10. I just decided to listen to this on a whim, having no real previous history with this band, and then I ended up falling in absolute love. The album is With You in Spirit by Balance and Composure.
I wanna keep you around. I wanna keep you down.
I have been obsessed with this album. Some songs especially I've been listening to non-stop. There isn't a dull moment on here for me. Everything flows really nicely, and there's really like personal lyrics that feel really vulnerable and relatable. But the main thing I love is that the songs are driven by these really gorgeous melodic guitar leads. My personal favourite is the opening to the song Cross to Bear. It is genuinely stunning. I also love the moody, like almost despondent vocal style on the song Leadfoot. It really makes it feel like a lonely drive through the night, and it's genuinely quite heartbreaking. This whole album has literally everything you could want, to be honest. It feels really complete as a project. It is genuinely captivating from start to finish, and I couldn't recommend it enough. So we're almost at the end now. My 2nd place album is gonna be Ill Times by Gum and Ambrose Kenny-Smith. So I heard about this album because I'm a huge King Gizzard fan, as you guys probably know. And if you didn't know, Ambrose Kenny-Smith is a member of King Gizzard, and his voice is so gorgeous. I really wanted to check out his other projects. All of the members of King Gizzard have other side projects, and for me this one is the best. I have been completely enamored with this album ever since I heard it. It's such a fun listen. It's like quite consistently upbeat and danceable, but there's so much heart to it as well. The opening song is a tribute to Ambrose's late father, and it's beautifully written. It kind of reminds me of like a Beck song. It's definitely a great album opener. I also really love the song Minor Setback. It is so funky, so jazzy, and so catchy. Ambrose really gets a chance to show off the true capabilities of his like bluesy and jazzy vocal style. It's so soulful, and his vocals work really well with the synthesizer driven instrumentals. Everything just blends together. It really is like an absolute joy. Okay, it's time to reveal my album of the year, and for a while this album definitely was not going to be it, but I re-listened quite a few times when planning this video, and it just makes sense. This is just the best. Absolute Elsewhere by Blood Incantation. What can I even say? This is literally 2 of my favourite genres just coming together in the most unbelievable way. I know that this is number 1 on a lot of people's lists, and I don't care because it's just the best. I love how much of a grandiose and epic feel this album has to it, but it also feels like really purposeful and well thought out, and they haven't been excessive with soundscapes just because they could, and I really like that. They've kind of contained themselves, and you can really tell. The death metal vocals add so much unpredictability to the album. You kind of feel like you never really know where things are going, similar to the Opeth album actually. This really is a journey and it completely commands all of your attention. I genuinely can't believe how good this album is. Like, every time I listen to it, I'm like, really? All the transitions are executed flawlessly. It shifts from spacey, dreamy, gorgeous progressive rock to brutal death metal passages with absolute ease. It's so effortless. One of my absolute highlights of this whole year is Absolute Elsewhere by Blood Incantation. So there we have it, my top 10 albums of the year. I'm super happy with my list actually. I think it showcases some really amazing music and I hope you guys like it and I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. I only have one more video left until the end of the year. So thank you and I will see you then.